Welcome everybody who's joining us here, and to everybody who will be watching this as a recording as well. We want to welcome you to the men's panel. So this is really a unique conversation. What we're going to be diving into today is a conversation for men to discover the power of unconditional love, radical responsibility, and unbridled vulnerability. To break the old patterns and the chronic state of aggression, depression, and fear that really defines toxic masculinity in today's world. So to say a little bit more about that, we're actually going to have a video. So I'm going to tee that up for you here.
Men, husbands, brothers, sons, and fathers. White males account for 7 of 10 suicide attempts, while men in general are 3.5 times as likely to die by suicide than women. This epidemic is haunting. The suppressed anger of men is the very lash that so often hurts others, especially women, as at least 1 in every 6 women is sexually abused, and 90% of all homicides are committed by men. That's what happens when emotion is stuffed down. Eventually, it blows into suicide, rape, war, and murder. From the days of childhood, men are taught to be fortresses of emotion, where nothing gets in or out. When we cry or share our vulnerabilities, we are made to feel wrong. We are programmed to be powerful machines. How do we produce more and feel less? Then there are coping mechanisms, how we numb the pain of broken relationships using drugs, alcohol, and pornography, which almost always destroys families. As men, we can no longer avoid these circumstances. The world has endured 4,700 years of warfare. Women didn't do that. Men did. It's time for a movement to be the best men we can be, to take responsibility, to end the violence, to feel the pain, to own the shadow and forgive ourselves, to make the world a safer place for everyone, men, women, and children. We thank the women's movement, as it was never meant to end with women. It was a spark to ignite men, to transform hearts, families, communities, countries, and the world, to rebalance the masculine and feminine and unleash the full potential of humanity. Join us for the first men's conference of its kind, a movement to restore the integrity of man and realize forgiveness, a clean slate to raise a new generation of boys and men.
Being a man myself, I believe that this is one of the most important conversations for our time. Men, we're leaders, in the world, and what we do sets the tone for the whole world around us. So I'm super excited because we put together a panel of experts here today who are going to dive deeper into this conversation and really explore this amazingly important topic. So we're going to start off by allowing everybody to introduce themselves. So let's dive right in. Coach Dwayne, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in this work, a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. So I am Dwayne Langham, masculinity architect. How I got started in this work, really just childhood, being a product of an environment, an only child raised by a single mother. And what dove me into it in my later years is decades later, looking up at 33 with a wife and 2 children, daughters, and really recognizing that I'm having to figure this all out, so many new things with no direction. Inside of being a life coach, wanting to help others, I started inside of relationships. And what I saw was a missing, something that you just pointed to that I love, the lead. And I got present and distinguished for myself the masculine and feminine energies. And from there, I was hooked. I've been a student ever since, just like looking through the matrix. And it gives context to so much power for men, women, all of us. And when I say that divine masculine and feminine, I mean literally inside each and every one of us. So that's really what set me out on this path. And I've committed myself creating a conversation, a modern man's rite of passage, really huge for fellowship and giving men access and a space similar to this one, which is why I'm so excited to be a part of it, where we can just discover and design what we say for ourselves is a mature masculine expression for a modern world today, with all the, like you pointed to, I think I heard in the video, just the out of balance, the confusion. Sometimes toxic masculinity is the first thing you hear of when being introduced to. So as a student, I'm here to bring balance and shine light to the whole broadness, and of course, the perfect pair to it, the divine feminine in all of us.
Mm. Thank you, Dwayne. You know what I hear you said over and over, and like in how you shared it too, is this being a student, right? Like you were going along and you were doing what you're doing, but then when you had the girls, it really open. You were like, wow, I really got to just learn something here. And it's like you're in this constant discovery. So you're guiding people, but you're guiding people through your own discovery.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
and you know, and that's the other thing I heard in what you shared is like that's kind of missing, isn't it? Like that there is that there like I didn't have a mentor or a guy. I mean, you read these books and these stories of like having this teacher and I never really had that.
Exactly. You, me, that's the generation. We are a product of not our fathers, not our fathers' fathers, generations that a rite of passage, an actual introduction of that transition has just been a missing.
Wow. Well, we're going to explore that deeper. And before we do that, we're going to hear from everybody else and, you know, let everybody else introduce themselves. So Michael, you want to say hello?
Absolutely. It's great to be here. I appreciate, the space that you gentlemen are providing. My name is Michael DeSanti. I have a one-on-one personal life coaching company for men, as well as I'm the author of the book New Man Emerging. And I also have a group online coaching program for men called Find Your Tribe. And similar to Dwayne, like I used my life as an experiment. My parents split up when I was young, and I was confused. I didn't have that mentorship that I was really yearning for and seeking. And I found as I got older in life, I don't have children yet. I found as I got older in life that I was working really hard, but relationships were always a challenge. Finances were always a challenge. And it's very similar to a lot of people. I would just do the same thing over and over again, and I'd expect different results. And there was a moment in my past relationship where I was in an argument, and I just had a moment where I said, I'm just living out my parents' conditioning. And I knew that for me, I needed to really break a cycle for myself and really create and architect a new future for myself. And as I started to do that, and I built a coaching practice around it, but using my own life as my experiment, I found that who I was coaching that I really loved working with was men, because I related to their challenges. I saw that their challenges were distinct. And I also saw that their challenges really weren't highlighted and talked about in our culture. In the video, it shows us, it shows that, we're conditioned to go produce and feel less, produce more. And what I started to find with a lot of the men that I was coaching, and I saw that I, in my youth, was going down that path where I was becoming successful making money, but I was becoming even less and less fulfilled. And I said, there's gotta be something that we're missing here. And so I've spent the better part of the last decade, really diving deep through my studies, through writing, through coaching, to really help men become dynamic and break away from this one-dimensional, you just need to produce, put your head down, don't feel what you need to feel, and just go produce something. And I said, no, there's a lot more for us as men and as leaders to be really dynamic. And that's been my life path and my journey and my vision for the last decade and a half.
What an amazing awakening that must have been. I mean, so you're in this like just this autopilot, like you're living somebody else's life, right? Like and as you said, your parents' life for you, but also kind of the world's life. I mean, I think so many people could relate to what you're saying. Like, you were doing what was meant to be done, right? You were getting the good job, and you're getting married to the right girl probably, and and you're going along and you're doing everything right. And meanwhile, your experience of life is getting tougher and tougher, and your joy and your fulfillment and your everything is just shrinking and getting less and less. And then all of a sudden you wake up and you realize, I didn't choose any of this.
Exactly. And on paper, I did all the right things.
All of it.
Did all the right things. I checked off all the boxes and did all the right things. And the more and more, the irony was the more and more I earned and the more I gained. I grew up, we were always struggling paycheck to paycheck, and the lights were getting turned off, and oven heat up in New Jersey, in the winter. The people from up north, they know what I'm talking about.
I know what you mean. We had the wood stove.
Yeah. And then on paper in my 20s, I owned my own home, drove a Mercedes Benz, traveled the world, and the more hollow I felt. And there was something that was missing because I did all the right things. I worked hard. I checked all the boxes off, but there was a part of my spirit that was just broken from it.
Wow. I mean, all right, we want to leave it right there, right? Because we're going to come back to this. And so, Adam, would you like to introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about your background and how you've gotten yourself involved in this type of work?
Yes, thank you, Eli. Thank you for having me, and thank you for all your brothers who are holding space and everyone who's witnessing. It's a blessing to be here with you in this moment. And that is really what has been my life journey, through some similarities growing up without a whole lot. Growing up with a father who almost lost his life when I was a teenager, just coming into that space where you start to find your groove, 13 years old, you're like, oh, there's some things happening with me. My voice is dropping a little bit, and then woof, life kept handing me these things over and over and over again that would have me then come into, and a little bit about myself first, as a founder of Conscious Equal Collective, which is an online Zoom virtual meeting, which kind of morphed into that through COVID, and it ended up being something really beautiful. But it's also a place, it's a safe space for men to gather, kind of group coaching setting, and a safe space for authentic communication. A co-founder of Purple Eagle Tribe, which is a men's, women, and couples transpersonal coaching. For my wife and I work with couples, and we actually facilitate retreats with some partners of ours as well. And I'm also the founder and CEO of Eagle Vision Development, which is a conscious real estate development company where we gentrify old, broken down, kind of decrepit areas into a useful giving back. And what had me come to that is through these different lessons of life of mom and dad, and actually as I got older, starting to see the lineage of mom and dad are perpetuating the behaviors of grandfather and grandmother who are perpetuating, and so on and so on and so on. And how far back, I don't know. But I started to look in myself and say, wow, I'm living out, just like Michael said there, I'm living out these behaviors, these beliefs of there's not enough, these beliefs of there's always someone who's going to be better than me, these beliefs of I'm a burden, and creating this reality that I ended up at the age of 30 some odd years old, similar to what Michael was, just having a moment and going, oh shit, I looked around, and it was one of the most liberating and one of the most scary things at the same time to say, now what? And really started to go inward and go through some yoga, deep, about 10 years back. I had this shift happen and go into some yogic studies, and go into some shamanic practices, and start looking deeper and deeper and deeper in my own personal spiritual journey to see where I could start to unwind these patterns and beliefs that were having me create something, or had me create something that wasn't in alignment with myself, and then start to become present to those things and become authentic about my inauthenticities, and stand in a place of ownership over victim, and to really start to be okay about having screwed up, quote unquote, and be okay with making those mistakes, and then actually want to give back. And that's a little bit about me.
Wow, Adam. So like all of us here, I think really your own journey and discovery, right? And the really the power of becoming authentic with yourself and of dealing with things in a way of being responsible for what was being created in your life rather than being at the effect of it. But it took you some time to get there, right? Which is, I mean, I think that's true for a lot of us. Sometimes I see young people doing like different work like this, and I'm so jealous. But that's, I think, also what we're standing for, right? Is that you don't have to wait till you're 35, 45, whatever it is, to start getting, having these breakthroughs and having these conversations be a part of your life. So thanks, Adam. And I can't wait to hear a little bit more about your personal view on these things. Nathan, let's hear from you. Welcome. How did you get yourself involved in the conversation for men's empowerment?
I mean, it started pretty young because I was in the Boy Scouts and I felt I had these values really instilled in me. But as I've gone through adulthood, I've really seen that one of the most important things we can do as a society is raising good men. And what occurred for me was I had a very comfortable childhood, and pretty much everything happened all at once. When I turned 18, I moved to Florida from New York to go to college, and then my family split up. My brother got sick and was in a serious state in the hospital. My dad lost his job at General Motors, and we fell from like upper middle class to like barely surviving. It was pretty much everything happened all at once. And what I made up was that I was on my own and I had to figure it out on my own. And I made a lot of poor decisions, both in terms of engaging in like partying type of behavior, addiction, codependency in relationship with women, some poor business, financial decisions, just like the whole slew of terrible decisions. And I guess I really got into the men's work. I was chasing my ex-girlfriend. We're still friends. She's cool, but I went to the middle of nowhere in Alabama to like try and get her back or some crazy thing, and ended up like staying with the founder of like the original men's movement from the 70s, John Lee, and like a cabin in the middle of nowhere. It's like, what are the odds that I'm staying with this guy for 11 days? It was crazy. And it's funny, she didn't end up seeing me, but I spent time with this guy and I read some of his books and while I was up there. And I have to say, when I came back, I realized what was missing for me was accountability, brotherhood, mentorship. So I did start to get involved with men's work, and I see now that we need camaraderie and we need community. And what's allowed me to turn my life around has been having mentorship, having men I could look up to role model the qualities that really work. Because I don't know. I obviously, like all people, have a lot of failure in my life, and I've only recently been able to convert that failure into success because I had the right partnership and the right guidance from men who I feel they've walked the road ahead of me, and I've been able to like really submit myself that I don't know. And that's the beautiful thing, is actually I do know, and I know how to ask for help. And I think that's one of the hardest things for me, was I had my pride in the way of asking for help instead of just resigning to failure as an inevitable way of being. And it was that easy to turn it all around with just making that request.
Wow. So I got that right at 18. And I mean, wow, at 18, what an age too, because you're dealing with so much inside of having to be your own man and discovering who you are at that time, and then to have all that foundation taken away from you. And then, as everybody's pointed to in all of their conversations, and then not to have the freedom as a man to be weak, to need help, to ask for support, right? That freedom's not available to men. Men do, you put on, you're strong and you push forward and you push through and you do what you got to do, and you don't whine about it. That's in different ways. I hear that from all of you, where that was kind of there for you. So what do you see from all of you? What are some of the problems that are facing men in today's age? And Nathan, we're just going to start right with you. I'd love to get, you're the youngest on this panel, and I'd love to get your perspective. And then we're kind of going to move through with the other people.
We're not, we got to remove the stigma from failure. I actually think failure is great. I think I've learned a lot, and it's shaped me in a really great way. And I was even thinking about it yesterday about how I'm making decisions entirely different than I was a few years ago, and like why I'm standing in those decisions and those character traits because of what I've gone through. So I would want to say that dealing with failure is a big thing. And then the other thing is shame and pride, right? I mean, I've dealt with my own forms of addiction to pornography. I'm gonna just put it out there, and it's like I've had shame, and I think it is in part that I grew up in a Catholic household, and we couldn't talk about these sexual feelings. We had to repress them, and that was one thing. And then the pride, right? Like, I'm not going to ask for help, and I'm going to power through this. I have to find, and I want to provide. I want to provide for my family, and I want to create a bigger plate for everyone, for people in our business. And I think as a man, I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I think that's true of all men. I mean, I think we all put a lot of pressure on ourselves to want to provide more, because we live in some sort of idea of ourselves as we're not good enough, and we have to prove ourselves to be loved. And if I don't show up doing this thing to success, to fulfillment, well, people aren't going to love and respect me. And I think as a man, that really hurts to actually to connect with that.
So what I'm hearing there is that one of the bigger problems that you see is that men have really tied their value to their performance.
Yeah.
And there's just no freedom. There's just shame around anything that doesn't fall into a very kind of narrow field of what performance and being in performance looks like. And like any kind of breakdown, dealing with maybe some sexual frustration, well, that's not performance. That's not cool, right? Nobody wants to talk about that. We only talk about every time we're winning, right? It's all about performance. That's a very interesting topic, so we're going to circle back around, and I'd love to hear, Michael, if you have any thoughts on this, and also anything else if you want to expand. If you want to add to what Nathan already created and expand any other problems that you see that really men facing in today's age.
I'd love to expand on what Nathan was saying, because I've found that as a cultural conversation, females are far more judged on appearance and the way that they look, and men are far more judged on and assessed by their performance. And I think there's another layer and level to that, where for men, performance is so key to assessment and to being judged and to being admired or lack thereof. There's also this interesting point we're in now in our culture, where we've never been more interconnected technologically, and yet at the same time never been more disconnected emotionally. And so the conversation a lot around men and masculinity, Nathan was pointing to it around performance and failure, is that so much of the masculine conversation is you need to figure it out on your own. Don't make any mistakes, and then you'll be judged by how well you perform, which is such a recipe for failure, to say figure it out on your own and don't fail. Like when we say it out loud, it actually sounds absurd, but it's so deeply ingrained in our cultural conversation that I think what ends up happening is that on the individual level, most men then struggle with the narratives around scarcity and around mediocrity. Scarcity narratives are there's not enough time, there's not enough love, there's not enough money, I'm not enough, I'll never be good enough. And then on the other spectrum, it's the narratives of mediocrity, of like, well, who am I? Good is good enough. I could procrastinate my purpose. Let me just put my head down and fit in and, produce something. And I'm sure once I reach that summit, everything will be good. And it's this major friction and conflict that I think is really fragmenting men, and having them, like Nathan was saying, like having them not reach out for help and support. And that's a major challenge. Now, I think the remedy and antidote of that is actually brotherhood and camaraderie, and looking to men not as competitors, but as teachers, mentors, equals, and then also other men that we can support.
You know, what you're pointing to, it's so poignant, right? Because I'm hearing you and I'm listening. I'm like, you know, I want to ask for help, right? But then, you know what shows up for me next is, well, if I'm asking for help, then I'm going to have to help people. And if I start sharing people all of my secrets, then I'm not going to be special. And then I'm not going to have an edge. And then I'm not going to be able to outperform the other guy. And then I'm going to suffer.
It's all ingrained in scarcity.
Absolutely.
If I were to actually share, give my gifts, then somehow I would lose significance and lose agency and lose power. And really, the opposite is actually true. The more gift you give, the more medicine you give, the more freedom that you empower others with, the more you experience it in ourselves. So we're taught this strange paradigm that doesn't work. And then we were confused or shocked that men feel isolated under all this pressure. And then if you're under that amount of pressure, of course, you're going to reach to something that relieves it. Alcohol, drugs, pornography, gambling, because we can't sit in this pressure cooker day after day after day without any release. And it becomes toxic over time.
Wow. So I want to hear that we're really diving in here, I feel like. So Dwayne, I'd love to hear if you have anything else you'd like to add to what we're already creating, or even welcome to take us in a slightly different direction too, if you really, some part of what men are facing these days that we're not hitting on yet.
No, it's beautiful because this kind of conversation, I'm thriving in it because I'm getting the perspective of, and what I hear in my own expression and conversation, I'm hearing pieces of it and other angles from each and every man. And like, wow, yeah, I can see us even pointing to the same thing, and I get to get another man's experience and journey through it. And it's so deep and rich and powerful. So what I hear in the whole thing and what I'd like to distinguish it, I think it's a paradigm that is fostered inside of the toxic masculinity. I call it the James Bond paradigm, right? 007. He's got all the skills. He's got all the, he can shoot guns, drive cars, get the girls, money, affluence, abundance, style. Like there's not a thing. And you never seen him in boot camp. You never see him train. And what I really got inside the conversation when having that distinction, the challenge or the problem is that it limits access. And you guys beautifully articulated, because inside that paradigm, we are thinking as soon as there's some flaw, I'm not good enough, there's something I can improve on, even just to lighten the perspective. Well, wait, I can't let anybody know I don't know how to do this. I can't ask anyone for support and help. I have to get it right. So I better be ready to perform now. I can't back away from it because then I'm scared, I'm weak, I'm the weakest link. And it's just this cycle of inescapability. And the whole thing is that's why it's toxic, because it gives a perspective that to be masculine, you cannot be human. You have to be something other than. And that's why I love conversations like this and this work, is to just distinguish and get that, because when you unlock that, then you can seek a mentor, right? A mentor can beat you over the head with the lessons, but until the student actually appears, until the mind is ready to receive that information, to ask for help, to be open, to be contributed to, you wouldn't see it. You can't hear contribution when it sounds like opposition, when it sounds like a challenge, when it means something about you, that you are less than because you have to be helped. If that all connects, I just hear each of us giving the background in so many tribes, and that's the access that I'm so passionate for men to get access to. I'm going to drop a bit of a grenade, if you will, on the back end of it. So inside of that situation, that cycle, you may be stuck to. A distinction I love to go through in my work is being a good man or being good at being a man. And you can interchange your name, right? So in this moment, in this situation or circumstance, am I being a good Dwayne, or am I being good at being Dwayne? Whatever my strengths are, whatever my access or ability is, and being that expression, because that's me. I don't have to be anything I saw, anything I inherited, or anything anyone told me to do. And that's where, again, just bringing back to Eli, what you touched on with the rite of passage, with guidance from elders, you can find and create your own expression. It's It's not about imitating what someone or society or propaganda, media, anything tells you. It's figuring out your expression, and your light is just as important as every other light out there. It all adds to an inclusive universe. Nothing will ever be taken away from the inclusion of it. The very energy that called it into existence is not going anywhere.
I love the perspective, Dwayne, you know, and that, like you said, just distinguishing it, right? Like just being aware, like, and inside of there, one of the things too that really came up for me is, you know, like a lot of you mentioned, and maybe Adam, maybe you'll touch on this a little bit, but how do you distinguish it sometimes? Like, you know, you're in the mix of it and you don't even know that it's happening. Like a lot of men don't even know that they are dealing with toxic masculinity. They think they're being honorable, or they think they're just being strong, or you know, or they're, like somebody said, they're following the traits that they learned from their father, you know, or their grandfather, and like it's just being handed down. It's not even you know, I really believe that most people are inherently kind and good people, and we get caught up in behaviors that don't always necessarily serve us and the world around us. So how do we, you know, and again, Adam, so I'm putting a lot on you, so all of that with everything we already talked about, and is there anything else that you want to add in that you see that men are facing that we haven't brought up yet? Woo!
I love it. I'm teed up and I've got all these tees, you know, I'm like, I got a driver, a 9-iron, like which one do I want to hit? First thing I want to do is pick up that grenade, Coach Dwayne, and put the pin back in it. And the reason that I say that is what I'm hearing and what I see is a situation that's happening is that there are, you know, I'm a father of 4 boys, you know, and one of them is, you know, 16 going on 25, and he's got it all figured out. And I am able to see a young man from a place of knowing who he is and the things that he wants to do and what he stands for. But what I'm seeing is a major problem is not knowing, when you said, am I being a good man or am I being a good Dwayne? Not even knowing who Dwayne is, or who Adam is, or who Michael is, or Eli or Nathan. Like that is a huge problem that I'm seeing. And then creating life and all of the doingness and getting married and getting a job and going to college and doing all this study from not even knowing who I am. So one of the major problems that I'm seeing in today's age, and I've seen it through my own, you know, not knowing who I am, and then operating from that place of like, I don't really even know. Nobody's ever even asked me. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have a this. I didn't have a that, asking me the question of, who are you? What do you stand for? What are your truths? What makes you feel good? What lights you up? And all these things. And then operating from what I would say is a distorted perspective. So if I'm coming from a center I am, that would be a place of clarity. If I'm coming from a I don't really know, or I'm leaning into a behavior or a pattern, maybe to the left or the right, like too far distorted into a feminine way of being, would be like I'm aloof, or just kind of I give up, not as a disparity to the feminine at all, but just like energetic. And then too far to the masculine, controlling, overbearing, tyrannical. If I'm coming from either one of those distortions and not coming back to that centered space, or even knowing how to, because that's a problem, is not knowing how, then I'm creating every moment from that, from a place of trigger, from a place of distortion, from a place of I don't know. I like to use this term. I like the drop the grenade. I have this sort of mantra that I have in my pocket here. It is, am I writing a check that I can't cash? And not that anybody writes checks anymore. There's the occasional time where you're in a hurry in Publix and you're like, what, really, a check right now? But like an energetic check. You know, okay, no problem. I'll handle it. No problem. I'll take the kids to school. No problem. I'll take care of that thing. No problem. Meanwhile, the bank account's like, and the, you know, the car needs, the tires need to be changed, and the boss, and I'm behind on this thing. And like, I'm writing these checks and saying that I can do all these things and keep doing it. From number one, a distortion, maybe perhaps, where life is off, you know, where the way I'm living is maybe coming from a misaligned self. And then I'm writing all these checks and depleting. And And then, like Eli said, not even knowing how to or ask for help because I'm so embarrassed of the mess that I got myself into. Once I take a moment and step back and, like you said, love, like loving kindness, being the loving observer of what's going on. That I don't even hear that being spoken walking up and down the street and in business meetings. It's just like, I am this identity of vice president, and this is the way that it is, versus, oh, my people are all in discord. There's this breakdown. I can see that they're operating from some kind of a fear or disbelief or a pattern. Being able to back up away off of it, like that missing in the world today is what I'm seeing creating just this perpetuating of like lack and not enough. And and I'm also just in closing there on this particular subject of what are the problems facing men is win lose. I'm seeing so much like there's men that I'm starting to see that are lifting each other up, and I love it when I go to one of our boys' sports events and I see one of the other kids, our boys are like really good. You did a great job, and I'm just like hoping and praying, and it brings tears to my eyes to think, in 10 years from now, I hope that that's the same conversation sitting at the office meeting. Like, why is it a win-lose competitive? Now, competition is not a bad thing because it helps to level up and all these things, but like making judging and like you're either I'm winning or I'm losing, not like or somebody else is winning. You know what I mean? Like it's this thing, and then mix that all together with what am I even winning at? Like not even knowing what game is being played.
I love what you brought, the perspective you brought in there, Adam. And it really, what I want to focus on is like the distortions, right? Because even the winning and losing can be a distortion too, really, in the world of it, right? And when you're operating from distortions, you're operating from your imagination, you're operating from your mind. You're not actually engaging with reality. And one of the things I noticed with that is men deal with a lot of anger, right? And frustration and a sense of powerlessness. And to me, that a lot of that, not all of it, but a big part of that lives inside of the conversation you're creating, because those distortions prevent you from actually engaging in the areas in your life that would actually impact your life in a way that you would want it to shift, because you're not engaged with reality. You're engaged with your imagination. You're engaged with all these things that you see as the boogeyman of life, which they might be the boogeymans of life, but they're not areas that are actually going to make any impact in reality by engaging with them. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, that's what I got from what you're creating there, and the way those distortions run our lives. And it's a really powerful conversation. So, I'd like to stay right there actually, and then we'll expand that. So what do you see are some small steps that you can take for men that they can take to unleash their potential and to, really start to overcome these things?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, the first one for me is just a few simple steps. Is I said it earlier in the beginning, become authentic about the inauthenticities. When there's a recognition of something that isn't in alignment with the self, be with it. Give some time, journal about it, meditate, go on a walk in nature. To me, that's like the greatest medicine that there is, nature. And then communicate to those around, that are in relationship or to the self, and start making changes about, like, where am I out of alignment? Where am I being inauthentic about the way I want my life to look? The next one would be being okay with making mistakes. I heard Nathan say about failure, like being okay with failing, being okay with like, wow, if that mistake wasn't made, I wouldn't know not to do that the next time. Like, I'm not going to go throw lighter fluid on a lit flame next time because it burned my hair off my hand. Like these things that we learn as, young. I'm not going to hold a bobcat, simple things like that, like a firework, because that hurts. And being like, we don't make ourselves wrong for that in that moment, but as things go along, there's this being okay with, I made a mistake, I can own it, I don't need to beat myself up about it, and I can learn, what did I learn from that? Give myself a moment. What is the grace on the other side of that lesson? And forgiveness, like forgiving like of self, right? Before even, like, as soon as the thought starts to come, just, okay, there's that pattern again. There's that beat up, there's that old story, there's dad's voice, there's, uncle's voice, there's that kid on the bully's voice again. Forgiveness. Self-love. I love Sadhguru says, what is self-love? When you feel love of someone else, who feels the love? I do. So what are you, schizophrenic? He says, there's, how do you feel when you love someone else? You feel love. So it's love. Like, so it's like being okay with making mistakes, forgiveness, love. Start to get connected with other men. Find a brotherhood group. Find something online where men are in service to other men, and just be willing to listen, even if you don't want to share anything. Like be willing to just be a part of a conversation, and then find some practices. I am a firm believer, and I'm here in service to anyone. Mindfulness, yoga, journaling, get a coach, and start standing in authorship, and meaning that I am creating my life and I can make a change by getting still for a second before I just go out and do that thing that may not even be in alignment with what I want to do. Give myself some time to settle and sit on a yoga mat, or sit with a coach, or sit with a book, a journal, and start to ask myself questions. What do I want to do? Where am I happy? Where am I not happy? Where am I joyous? Where am I not joyous? What area, what domain in my life, health, fitness, finances, so on and so forth, is there something that I can bring into a place where I feel happy with that?
I love all of it. And the part that really stands out to me, is I'm just looking at my own life, and what's given me the most power is, the being authentic where you're inauthentic, right? Because I feel like that has to be kind of the first, like, you got to tell the truth to yourself, right? I mean, if your credit cards are over, if you're over your credit cards by thousands of dollars every month, you just got to get real. That's the first thing. You can't just pretend, oh, it's something else. So being authentic where you're inauthentic, and then all those other steps, of course, that to me makes a lot of sense. But to me, that's what really stood out to me, Adam. I love that access, and everything you shared is valuable. Thank you. But I was just saying, for me, that really stood out as a powerful access point. And and tribe and community and men like that. So I'd love to hear what Michael has to share about that, as far as small steps and what you see is available for men to unleash their potential.
Absolutely. And I loved Coach Dwayne's analogy of James Bond and Adam, you were talking about distortion. And I want to go a little deeper into that. And there's an analogy, since Coach Dwayne brought up analogies, I'll throw one in too. I coach men in the analogy of a man is like a tree, and the shadow of the tree is the man's identity. It's the outline, looks just like it, but it'll never be the man. It'll never be the tree. The branches of the tree are like a man's reputation. Every once in a while, they get cut. They get pruned. And some of us, some of us actually need a pruning. With the reputation, like if the branches are cut, it may hurt, but it's not going to kill the tree. But the trunk of the tree is a man's character. And if that gets cut, the tree dies. And the roots of a tree are the man's connection to spirit, to his higher power, to God. And what happens is we are in this culture right now, we are so over focused on identity and on reputation, and we're so under focused on character and spirit. And so I always coach men in, let's reverse that. Let's strengthen character. Let's live by principles and virtues and strengthen the character of a man. Am I being, like Dwayne said, am I being a good man, or am I being good at being a man? Being good at being a man. Let's develop character. Let's strengthen spirit. So first, the shift in the mindset is what we're taught. We've been talking about it. Once I go get this and accomplish this and produce this, that's backwards. That's building identity. That's building reputation. And meanwhile, the character and the roots are not getting fed. So the first thing is let's reverse that equation. Let's feed the roots. Let's feed the character. Let the branches and the shadow grow where it needs to grow. The second, I reiterate with Adam, brotherhood. We must be part of a brotherhood. without it, we breed isolation, and isolation breeds sickness and disease. It won't work. We won't grow fast, and we'll also, what I found by having an online group that I coach for Find Your Tribe, what I have found is a theme that on our own, men think that their gifts are common and their challenges are unique. But when men get into a circle and into a group, what they find is that their challenges are common and their gifts are incredibly unique. And what that does is that distinguishes between a sense of belonging and fitting in. To fit in, I've got to compromise who I am. I'll change who I am. I'll put on the identity. I'll do what I need to do. I'll be the good boy, and I'll suppress my emotion, and I'll fit in for your approval. A sense of belonging comes from authenticity, owning my gifts, owning the way I filter and see and relate to the world. And then I show up to that group whole, and then we celebrate each other's wholeness and uniqueness. Nothing needs to be compromised. Adam was pointing to that, and I hope 10 years from now, that's the conversation, that I don't need you to lose for me to win. We can all win through our uniqueness and through those gifts and skills. And finally, Eli, I'll reiterate what you just said. Stop lying. Tell the truth. And most people, and this is key for men, because most people think, oh, I don't lie, because most people think lies are deliberate misleadings. Like, Eli, the gold, I'm telling you the gold is that way when I know it's that way. That's deliberately misleading you. That's not how most men lie. Most men lie through omission or inflation. That when I communicate with you, I'm going to leave certain things out. I'm going to sugarcoat it, and I'm going to manipulate you to hear it the way I want you to hear it, even though it's not fully the truth. My bank account is, it's better than you would think. I'm just going to omit it. I'm going to leave it out. And then other men lie through inflation. They're going to make things sound more grand than they actually are. And they're going to inflate it. They're going to make it grandiose. And meanwhile, it's actually just a seed. And they're trying to tell you it's a redwood. And it's not true. And the truth shall set you free, man. Like, it's a powerful and potent quote. And really what I think what men have to start to do is actually start to tell the truth about themselves. Stop omitting, stop inflating, be real, be authentic, be honest. And in that honesty, we can repair and rebuild some of those unconscious narratives and systems and behaviors that are actually harming most men.
Michael, I want to be part of your tribe, man. You know what? I've never heard that said exactly like that before. I thought that was amazing. That that when men are apart, they think their problems, they think their gifts are normal and their problems are unique, and vice versa. That to me stands out as probably one of the, and the only way I can see even having the chance to overcome that is in community. Because no matter how smart you are, no matter how much you think about that, no matter how much you know things, like that's like one of those things in life, like you know it. It doesn't matter until you experience it.
Exactly. And in the experience, we experience through our interrelatedness. On our own, everything is just going to continue to be a concept or a theory or a narrative. But
Wow.
The moment now we're together, I can experience authenticity through my relatedness with you all. And then there's going to be certain things, Coach Dwayne was bringing up. There's certain things, I totally relate to that. And then there's going to be other things like, wow, that's a perspective I've never even experienced, but now you bring that perspective. And together, we remember who we are through our interrelatedness.
Thanks, Michael. Speaking of hearing, I want to hear, Dwayne, what do you hear in this? What to you are some of the most important steps that men can take to unleash their potential, and anything you want to expand on the conversation that we're already having here?
Yeah, you guys probably see me smiling over here ear to ear, because every time I'm hearing, like, I don't have anything new to say. And that's what I love, because in this conversation, we're so aligned in what we're studying. And I love getting the confirmation of, Like, yeah, I'm amongst like scholars of men's work. Like we all have identified and see that. And I've always believed that your leadership is seeing what's missing out there, and that's what you're called to go out there and fulfill. And so I'm just honored to be shoulder to shoulder with you gentlemen in this type of conversation. So with that, I'm going to share, my thoughts or words of wisdom in this realm. So masculinity answers the question, who am I? And I think it was Adam who said it first when I heard it, like getting that clear for yourself, that really is the grounding for men, especially to express here's the kicker, mature masculinity. I really like to emphasize that. There's shadow, there's toxic, there's out of balance, all kind of different ways of saying the same thing. For me, there is a maturity that comes when not just the knee-jerk reaction of raw masculine, that's the gotta respond, gotta react. It's the maturity in what we're touching on that allows men to really know themselves. So for that, I got the 3 E's that men cannot get enough, okay? I got to bring some alliteration and rhymes to it. All right, so the first one, education. Know yourself. You can't answer that, who am I, without knowing yourself, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, vulnerabilities, what it is that you want. And then you've got to know yourself, like we're talking about here, in relationship to the world, in relation to your family, to your community, to your nationality, background, whatever. There's an expression of you inside of that. And I love how Michael brought out, it's actually unique. And when you get that and acknowledge it, it makes all the difference in the world. So then you get the second E, empower. How do you empower yourself? You have to engage with your emotions. You can't put them under the rug. You can't suppress them. And it was touched on so well. It's not to beat yourself up about it. It's not to feel bad about it. It is a tool. It is a compass. Getting back to the first one, it doesn't align with me. It's something about this. I'm upset in how I showed up. I'm disappointed in how this came together. I'm scared of or insecure about. That's not your truest expression. So now dive into that, grapple with it, see what's actually there for you. Look back at childhood conversations. Look back at where these conversations originated when you didn't have the capacity, strength, the knowledge, the power, or the support around you to do anything about it. That's how you get empowered. And then the last part, the importance of fellowship. Even in a casual space, the importance of that missing right now for men to just be, not to be judged, not even to be contributed to if they don't want to, but that is part of the access to transparency, to publicly with other men, to get the relatedness of what we're all going through and to be in that and a part of that and with that and see your uniqueness, see your commonality, see that bond together, get support and accountability on so many local levels. I mean, like you said, you want to be part of Michael's tribe. I want to be part of Adam's tribe. Like it's all this huge infinite that our minds can barely wrap around. Like we are all one, pardon the language, big ass tribe. And when we get that, we can all still be leaders in our own tribes and communities and churches and businesses and families and on those smaller levels. Like I said, it's all inclusive. But those are the 3 E's that you can't get enough of. Got to get yourself educated, got to get yourself empowered and enroll with others, engage with others. That's what it's all about. That's my recipe. I'm gonna stop.
Wow. No, that's beautiful, Dwayne. Educated, empowered, and enrolled with others. And I hear also enrolled in your own life, enrolled in what's important to you, like just enrolled in life. Like those people that are enrolled in what they're up to in life. There's a different experience of being with those people. And that's the experience being with you. So Nathan, and listen, for the people that are listening, we're probably going to go over by about 1 or 2 minutes, maybe 5 minutes at the most. So just to let anybody listening, and Nathan, we want to hear from you. So what are small steps that you see a man can take to unleash his potential? And anything you want to expand on the conversation we've been having also.
Yeah, I want to expand and I want to echo. First of all,
perfect.
I came into this conversation. It's amazing what the dynamic between men and women is, because the women had me emotionally present, and I came into this call with a space opened up inside of me. And here you gentlemen are speaking, and it was filling that space, and it had a strength and a character building essence to it, and it really made a difference. And actually, I talk about steps. I think the steps are what Michael was saying was just to connect with that brotherhood. I think we all need community. And I think a great example of it for me is just like telling the truth on myself. I didn't realize last week this grumpiness came up on me, and it came out of nowhere. I was just doing so much and I was frustrated, and I didn't realize my way of being was impacting other people. And I was like, oh wait, they don't even know what I'm going through. They would totally give me like tons of grace and compassion if I just told them like, this is everything I'm handling, and I'm sorry if I'm being that way. You know what we resist persists. And if we're going to liberate ourselves from the chronic states of toxic masculinity, we got to tell the truth on ourselves. And I think we've all really said that in our own way. And I just think that if we're honest, it creates a space where that whole thing disappears, and then that new thing can show up. And that new thing is that authentic man, the man that I think the world really needs, like men like that to show up. And we lead by example. We can't tell people what to do. We have to live it in our own lives, is what I've learned. And so I've really kind of ingrained that in myself, that I'm like, what kind of example? I don't have kids, but I do ask myself what kind of example I'm setting, because I don't want to get in a way of like doing one thing and saying another thing. And one of the things I want to backtrack on, talking about the woman conversation, is like I have a vision and a perspective to see, like, and I think we all agree with this, is to see this thing merge with women. Because a few years ago, with my friend Michelle Alva, we ran a program called Men Healing Women, Healing Men. And what we discovered was like women were doing their thing, men were doing their thing. And then we brought the whole thing together. It was like single people, couples, and there was like a whole relatedness that occurred between men and women. And I'm just so present to, like, we have gifts to share with each other. We have love to share with each other. And I mean love like in the truest form of love, not like you have to be like, in a intimate relationship. And what I'm looking at in terms of the future is, how do we come to understand these shifting gender roles? Because the whole thing has shifted so much in the last generation, probably more than any other time in history. And it's left this space of a little bit of confusion and, stuff coming up about it, but it's also created a space to create something new, like create a space for men to like really rise and take responsibility. Like, we have to take responsibility for the way this world's been going, because the reality is it's been a quote unquote man's world for like, quite a while now, and the condition of the world. And and we get to share the world, and it's not just a man's world. It's actually a man and a woman's world. And we get to redefine what that looks like, so we can share in power, and we can share in opportunity, and we can share in healing. There's just so much to share in. And that's what I'm really excited about, as we develop this men's conversation, that we'll have a greater form of ourselves, that we can also reinvest that part of ourselves into women, and vice versa.
Wow. Nathan, thank you for creating that, because it inspires me for the future. You being, as I've said, the youngest person here, I hope that there are many other young people that are standing for a future like that. I get how you really see the power of just dealing with yourself and your own inner, your inner world as an access for other people. And it's really beautiful, man. I really thank you for that. And the vision of men and women really standing united, as it's meant to be, I think is something really, the world needs. So Nathan's already started to kind of answer our final question. So I'd like to go around. I'd love to hear from all of you. What do you see possible for men in the future? And the future, like what's the future that you want to create for people here? Adam, I see you moving around. You have something, you got, go for it.
I love creating. I actually really love this is one of the things I would say, to be able to sit with another human being, in this case, another man, and ask questions, to have this vision of possibility open up, and just like, I can't wait to go do that. Oh my God. That is one of the things that I see from doing this work. And, I've been gifted to know Michael DeSanti long enough to actually to see that with him with others, and like that ripple effect that happens from that. So thank you, Michael, for showing me what that looks like early on in my journey. But really, what I wanted to say is what's possible for the future. I kind of bullet pointed it down. That's why I was like, oh, I was so excited. Brotherhood, it's possible. Inner balance is possible. Fulfillment in all domains of life is possible. Sustainable joy is possible. Having the relationship of your dreams is possible. Ask me how I know. Making a difference in the world, like it as me, little Adam, that's the little boy. Making a difference in the world is possible. Belonging is possible, and healing of the planet. Nathan, you said it so many different ways of like what happens when, and that's what I really see as what's happening, and as a possibility that there's this balance that comes back in, balance of interrelatedness, like Michael was saying, of like seeing what it is to be authentic in the interrelating and finding the gifts and the individual gifts of each individual person, and sharing the common struggles, circumstances, and otherwise that are there. It's this beautiful healing of the planet, and therefore what I mean by that is like no longer taking and sucking energy, sucking of Mother Earth, but actually restoring wholeness to the planet. And I'm complete.
Wow, Adam. I hear a world of cooperation. I hear a world of that works, for everybody in it, that really allows space for everything, and inside of this conversation, I really do see as an opportunity that it's up to men to really to take a stand for that. And when you were speaking it, I could actually almost taste it, like I could see it, right? I could see that world, and we're not there yet, but we can be there. So, wow, thank you for creating that. It's really, Dwayne, you want to create what you see for us, what's possible for men in the future?
Yeah, and so what I hear in the conversation of what's possible for men, I'll actually take a step further back to create for what I see as possible for the world inside of this conversation for men, as I see it. So the conversation for balanced, healthy, mature, masculine energy, it's my belief and my understanding from the study, masculine leads and feminine follows. So one thing I heard that was amazing and powerful in what Adam just created, and I think this is a part of that same world, when so much of life works, even down to like the literally habitat and planet, it starts with men bringing back the balance of masculine and our feminine inside of ourselves, such that then women can get balanced in their feminine and in their masculine. And that, for me, creates a utopia, a heaven on earth. And similar to the world that Adam's created, so much is possible to go forward. The things that seem like problems right now are just the next conversation awaiting a solution in the future. Like when everything is balanced, relationship, the home life, the mental and physical balance between what we do that's important. Why are all these 8 billion beings on this planet to get up and go work so we can get our ends meeting? Like there's, diseases to be cured. There's, life out there in space to be explored. For me, it occurs that this generation, and I think it's why it's perfect timing for the awakening, I think 50 to 100 years ago, the speed at which man was evolving and expanding had shrunken in. And part of even what I hear creating in that, just siphoning and taking off Mother Nature's resources, when we bring balance to that and have feminine balance to take care and preserve what we have and expand, that's when there's something to match, the Elon Musk out there ready to go to another planet. At the same time, something to really transform and revitalize this planet here, and just such a healthier tribe of humanity, so that humanity is not a plague, planet hopping, but humanity is a light shining that expands the universe and makes anything possible. I mean, it's real out there in the ether, and that's genuinely what I see is possible when men start to step into this conversation. Because here's the thing, one thing about masculine energy, it leads, it takes on the risk, it takes on the challenge, and that softness of our feminine that we cultivate in women, or just the divine feminine energy, is not going to make that move. So yeah, that is the part of it, like you say, a man's world, because it's going to take masculine energy to reach out, take that risk, and begin to expand in that direction, as I see it.
Wow, Dwayne, that's not too far out for me. And, thank you for what you created there, because it also got me present, so that I had missed part of what Adam was creating, that you were both standing for in your what you created, which was there's actually possibility of healing Mother Earth inside of this conversation too. And Adam, forgive me for missing that in what you created before, because I stepped over that. And Dwayne, thank you for bringing that back into it as well. And I got both of you, like, that is so inside of the, and it's almost like everything's the macro and the micro, right? It's just amazing how everything relates to each other. So by healing the smallest relationships on the planet, we in turn get to heal every relationship. Michael, I'd love to hear from you. What's possible with men in the future, as far as you see it?
I think my brothers here have put it eloquently and brilliantly and accurately. And the only thing I could reiterate, and we share the same vision. The only thing I'll reiterate or give my own angle on it. There's a chapter in my book, and it's called "What is this all for?" Why go through all this work and all this struggle and all this redesigning and just pulling your guts out constantly, doing all this consciousness work, and the chapter's called "What's it all for?" And the answer that I give is so that a man could one day be in possession of himself again. That man is in possession of who he is, his values, his principles, his character, his leadership, his freedom, his emotion, his thought system, all of it. And when man is once again, or maybe for the first time, in possession of himself, then, like Dwayne is saying, that leader emerges. And what happens is, what becomes possible is harmony. Harmony within himself, between masculine and feminine, harmony in his relationships, like Adam was saying, relationships of your dreams that actually work and actually uplift each other, that actually heal families and heal communities, harmony within sustainability of our planet and our earth and its resources. And rather than, like Dwayne was saying, rather than be a scar to the planet, be a band-aid and a healer and a medicine to the planet and to this universe and to this galaxy. And when a man is in possession of himself, he remembers that his job here is not to pillage and take and accumulate, but to actually become a steward again and make better what he found, make better for the next generation and 7 generations after, and to have made a dent and an impact on infinity because he did the work, because he incorporated himself and possessed himself and harmonized himself. And when we do that as men, watch the ripple effect that it'll create, not only in ourselves, our families, our communities, the world, the planet, the universe, and everything. We'll get out of our own way. We'll stop all this self-inflicted pressure and stress, and we'll actually get out of the way and have, like Dwayne was saying, we'll have a new conversation of what's possible in a state of harmony where everyone wins.
Wow, Michael, that's quite I really got something for what you're creating there. Like, women often talk about how powerful they are, right? And men talk about how strong they are. And in that conversation, I got the power of men. We miss the power, I think. We talk about the physical strength, like the brute strength, but there's a power. And, and that power comes from, as everybody in here created, the authenticity, the vulnerability, and the willingness, right? The willingness to have that softness be part of the strength, right? And inside of that, I mean, I just got like, man, if young boys, you know, were, and everybody, I guess men of all ages, but I especially think of just young boys, if these were the conversations that they were having on a regular basis, how it would change the world and how much of an impact it would make. So look, Nathan and I are gonna wrap up because of the day we had here. But I just want to thank all of you so much for being here, for being the type of men that would actually stand for and like be the men that this is what's, you know, this is what it is to be a man in this world. Because there's a lot of different messages out there. And to me, this is the message I want to see out there. Right. So yeah, Dwayne. So thank you all. Like, listen, from the bottom of my heart, I couldn't thank you all enough. And this is just the very beginning, the very, very beginning. The idea is to empower everything each one of you are up to individually, make your impact bigger, and then to come back together collectively and to keep doing different things as teams. And what we're actually playing into, gentlemen, is we're going to have, like we had a whole day of different panels. We're going to have a whole day just for men coming up here in the near future. So thank you so much.
We're going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's right, Dwayne.
I like it.
I love that.
Awesome.